Welcome to John Thompson Music Podcast number 1. My guest today is a professional guitar instructor, composer, producer with years of professional experience. He teaches private guitar students in New Jersey and also online. He could be reached at ronnashguitar.com. I'd like to welcome Mr. Ron Nash. This thing right away here. When you were a kid, growing up, like, what were your earliest, like, musical influences? Like, how did you get into music? What was the first
Well,
thing that you
actually,
remember?
super cool story because my father was from England, and he was in a club with these Irish. There was 3 Irish brothers. The Scottish guy that actually used to teach keyboards in at Freehold Music, like forever, way back in the day, and they all were in this thing called the Ulster Club. It was Scottish, English, and Irish guys. The 3 Irish brothers sang their asses off, killer singers, and then my dad could play a little keyboards, some guitar, sing a little bit. And the guy on keyboards was just unreal. He was so good. Like, you just name a song and what key you could sing it in and he could play it, no problem. But they would have parties all the time because they're Irish, English, Scottish guys. So they always get together and drink and play music and sing. So it was like super cool. Joe, the guy who played keyboards, he like encouraged us little kids, like he'd have a big picnic and then like once a year, like 4th of July or something. And he would teach us a couple songs. So we would like play as, I don't know, we were like maybe 12 years old. We'd be playing on the stage, like, his stage was his concrete patio, but got to play like a Monkey song, a crappy version of a Beatles song or whatever, but it was, I'm telling you, they were some good times, I got to tell you.
So that was good. So your dad actually was very much into music. That's so cool. My parents were basically variety show watchers, and my mother couldn't sing a note of anything. So you must have heard a lot of that Irish and the ethnic music and stuff like that when you at
Well,
an
they
early.
did, but I mean, a lot of it really was because they liked, like the Irish guys all loved like Elvis and Buddy Holly, so it's like those kind of songs they were singing. And
Oh, okay. All
yeah,
right. So they were doing the early rock and roll.
yeah. I
So
mean, there
you
was
were exposed to all of that stuff. Yeah, I was wondering because you're a little bit younger than I am, so I was wondering if you got a hint of the early '50s, like with the Buddy
oh,
Holly and
through those guys, yes,
yeah, through them.
But no, I mean, I probably heard them sing Elvis songs before I heard an actual Elvis
An
song.
actual Elvis tune, yeah,
But
yeah.
it was, my father used to work, he managed like the Sayerwoods Camera House in Sayreville. It was like, before you had Best Buy and all that stuff through the 60s and 70s. So they sold high-end cameras and like stereo equipment and stuff. So they would give them demo cassettes and all crap. So I mean, we had everything from Partridge Family to Creedence to Johnny Cash to the Beatles. My father would take the demo tapes home, and that's actually why we never had an 8-track, because he said they sucked. We wanted an 8-track, and he's like, "Nah, they're terrible, man." He got us a cassette player, so we used to get all the cassettes.
Yeah, I love the cassettes. I still love the cassettes. I have like a zillion cassettes still and a couple of cassette machines. And they lasted a long time, man. They endured the time, and that's cool. So that's what drew you to like producing and all of that kind of stuff, huh? And getting the studio. Your father was into the
Well, I mean,
high end audio stuff, huh? at
I
the
mean,
time?
honestly, I just did it to kind of to try it. I know, I'm like a novice. I'm half, half decent engineer. I'm really more player performer guy, but I
Right.
mean, I could record stuff and I'm decent, but I'm not great at it. I'm good at it, but
Yeah.
nothing
Well,
great.
actually, you produced some pretty cool tracks for me, and I've had a lot of fun in your studio actually recording. So, it's been great. It's really been cool in the studio with you. What about like during high school and stuff? Like, what what kind of music were you into in high school? I mean, were you into the real heavy thing, progressive thing, or
Well, I'll
were you
have to
into
tell you.
like the Black Sabbath stuff? Or
Well, definitely was into that, but my probably like my first really like band that I loved was BTO. I loved Bachman and Turner Overdrive because
great group,
well, they were great the songs were great. I mean, you're a little kid, so you're looking for catchy songs. I'm not looking for, the most mind-blowing virtuoso playing. I just like songs, you're a kid, but
right?
they were great. I loved them doing their I mean, they had like 4 or 5 killer albums right in a row.
Right.
And that was
I
probably my
know they had a lot
favorite.
of hits. They had a lot of hits, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that it was probably like BTO. I really loved Deep Purple and like early Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult. Like that's kind of and a lot of I think Blue Oyster Cult I kind of got into because my mother's stepbrother actually, they were much younger than my mother. He was like 20 years younger than her, but he had all that stuff. He was a few years older than me. He turned us on to like Tyranny and Mutation and like the second Blue Oyster Cult album, then all the Deep Purple and Uriah Heep. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, heavy and not too poppy, but I got a soft spot for the poppy tunes.
Yeah. Speaking of the poppy tunes, let's back up just a little bit. What about when the Beatles came out? What were your?
Well, when they came out, I was 2 years old, so
Oh
uh,
yeah, see, so
I
yeah,
don't. But
so
actually, going back to like my father getting the cassettes,
right,
like
right.
the 4 cassettes that he brought home the first time, I think it was Partridge Family album, um, Abbey Road, Johnny Cash, like Gold Hits or something, and Credence, Willie and the Poor Boys. So
Oh,
probably be Willie and the Poor Boys, Credence, and Abbey Road. I mean, we obviously beat those tapes to death.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very cool. So getting back to going forward again here. Sorry about that, but do you think that those guys, like Blue Oyster Cult and those guys, in concert? I mean, I really didn't get a chance to see them or anything. Do you think they were like the first real like jam bands? Like, because I know those guys were awesome musicians, and I know that they could jam out. Did they like jam out on their stuff in concert, or did they kind of just, keep it stock like, the way it was recorded?
No, I've seen Blue Oyster Cult definitely over 100 times, and they jam, but they don't do like like an Allman Brothers or Dead thing where they really play long. Like Buck
Right,
might play, say, 2 minute solo or something at the end of a tune, just jam out, maybe 2, 3 minutes, and a lot of their live stuff, they're actually only like one of the few real heavy bands, like, metal and the prog rock stuff is pretty much more like classical where it's like it's a composition. You don't have a lot of room,
right,
to jam on it. But they were the only ones. He would just jam at the end of the tunes. They take that last riff,
right.
beat it to death, and he would just freaking go bananas. And I mean, like a little kid, loving the lasers and the big Godzilla and shit.
Oh yeah.
I love those guys,
The
man.
shows, the shows back then were so a lot of the shows were so theatrical. What do you think? Do you think um, Yeah. Alice Cooper, do you think was he the first theatrical guy, or was it Bowie, or I'm not sure, you know?
Well, I mean, there was people who dabbled in it, but I mean, it was actually, you'd have to say it was Alice Cooper that really
Right.
was the premier guy. Even Zappa like gave him his first contract because Zappa's like seen that he's nuts. But you know, Alice actually, what's kind of funny, I don't think that many people know about Alice is that like Milton Berle and all those guys that like the vaudeville stuff,
Uh-huh.
he would bring guys to see Alice because it reminded him of the old vaudeville burlesque days. I doubt those guys were into the music, but you know, they loved his show,
Yeah, and
which
he
is,
came out with like what, with the top hat and a cane and all of that, you know.
well, that was later. That was the
Oh, that was
Billion
later.
Dollar Babies tour. So
Okay.
yeah, I actually have that. I have a German cable show that has the whole movie of that. It's the Billion Dollar Babies tour movie. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right. So that's the kind of stuff, you know, that you were doing in high school, listening to that. What were you, you know, name some guitar players. Let's talk about some guitar players that around that time, around the high school time. I know um, I was into like the John McLaughlin and the, you know, some of the hotter guitar players like that. What were your thoughts on that? Like after Jimi Hendrix, for me, it was kind of John McLaughlin.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, not to beat it to death, but I am a couple years younger. I
Right.
mean, just the 3 or 4 years makes a difference in that. I mean, I,
Especially during high school and that time, yeah.
oh, big, well, because I mean, we really all kind of grew up with WABC playing like, I mean, they'd play a Black Sabbath song and then a Sonny and Cher song, you know, which
Right,
is,
yeah.
you know, so you just liked songs, you know, you liked music. You didn't really categorize it too much. But the early days, I'd have to say Richie Blackmore, you know,
Yeah.
what I actually, you know, if you want to get into like this evolution of the guitar stuff, I would go like, you have that, you know, the 50s, 60s era. I mean,
Right,
great
right.
players. I
Yeah, let's
mean,
talk about that. Yeah.
I think a lot of those, I mean, killer players. You got Chet
Right.
Atkins and all those, you know, Carl Perkins, totally
Yeah.
different
Oh,
style. I mean, I think after George Harrison, the only other like rock dude that besides like a Brian Setzer or those kind of rockabilly guys, like Steve Howe, really was
right.
one of the later guys that just, you know, him, maybe Page a little bit, and Rick Emmett, they took some of those older kind of ideas weren't always based on bluesy stuff, you know, in other words,
Mhm.
you know. Well, like McLaughlin, I mean, that's totally different ballgame.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you weren't really into that kind of buggy, jazzy stuff at that time. Um, but yeah. All right. So what else? What else do we got here? Let's see. You guys got to excuse me. I'm new to this business here. This is the first podcast. I'm really excited here. And, you know, uh, let's see here. All right. I know that. Let's talk about your book a little bit. I mentioned in the intro that Ron is a wonderful guitar teacher. He's been teaching for a long time. I'm sure he has many different thoughts on teaching and all of that kind of stuff. So, do you have a copy of your book there, Ron, that you can like put in front of the
There's a
camera?
shameless plug, but this is actually the
Yeah.
old cover. I'd have to run down to my basement to get one with the new cover.
All
But
right.
this is the first, and actually, let me see. I might have the second book over here. If I don't, I might have. If I don't have the book, I have the workbook that goes along with it. Let me see. Oh yeah. Sorry about that, folks, but the shapes of things. This is the
Uh,
workbook to the other book showed the shapes of things. I really just am talking about chord patterns, scale patterns, arpeggio patterns, because luckily fretted instruments we can visualize. We don't have to, I mean, of course, if you're a good reader, that's kind of, brings you to a whole new level. But we can learn stuff from charts and tabs and, just little, more visual stuff than actual having to read.
yeah. So what are your thoughts on teaching? Like what's your teaching philosophy? I mean, do you teach everybody differently, or do you have like kind of a standard thing, or do you try to uh more or less deviate from your program to keep some of these, people interested, or
Well, I mean, that I mean, you teach, there's certain fundamental stuff. It doesn't matter what you like. You kind of have to know. I mean, if you play
right?
a D chord in a Madonna song or a Metallica song, it's still just a D chord,
That's true.
So you do need to know a lot of the fundamentals, and then you bust it into stylistic things, I mean, and as well as anybody, without you have to have a personality on the instrument. You got to learn all the basics, and then just you know put all that stuff you stole from everybody
Y-
else, and hopefully it comes out as you.
Yeah, I got that for sure. That's for sure.
Well,
Yeah, there's definitely basics. I mean, there's things, and a lot of times, a lot of times people will come and they'll say, well, I don't want to learn music theory. I don't want to learn how to read. I just want to learn how to uh, accompany myself. And, if somebody said that to you, then what do you think you would just get them into? Mostly just being able to play some good chords and stuff, or
well, I mean, that's a good question. But if you have like an adult guy always wanted to play guitar, maybe the kids are out of school and he's got some more time to himself, and they just want to learn some simple songs to strum along at a party. Have a hot dog and a beer, play like a Neil Young song or something, and so it's different levels. I mean, I taught a kid, Abe Ovadia, who won the Manhattan 2016 Jazz Guitarist of the Year.
wow.
So I mean, I'm sure he blows me away playing jazz, but it's like I taught him all the fundamental stuff. And actually, he was taking lessons from somebody else at Musicians Workshop, whose name I won't mention. But the father, seeing that, I had the book out and like I really had a method, I have landmark spots when I'm teaching out of the book. Like we'll do an X number of pages, then I'm going to stop. And if you like, Leonard Skinner, I'll show you a Skinner song using those chords.
Right.
If you like what Foo Fighters, I'll show you a Foo Fighters song with those chords. So, I mean, teaching it really, you do have to teach in the fundamentals. I try to keep moving them along, so you don't dwell on anything and then come back and review. But, I mean, how many people you taught? Some people,
Yeah.
it's their life, and other people it's just, hey, it's kind of something fun I always wanted to do, let me try it.
Right, exactly. There's all kinds of levels, so it's good to be flexible and just to be able to teach people what they want to learn. Um, I had a student come to me one time and say, "Oh, my last teacher was like, you must keep your finger here and do this," and like slapping them with a ruler and stuff. So, um, that's how I wound up getting the student. And speaking of teaching, let's go back a little bit and talk about your musical education. Like, what was uh, who was your first teacher? And
actually, you may even have heard of the dude. I know he's a big like a jazzy dude. And speaking of musicians workshop, Joe Striff knew the guy, and going back, even my dad had his keyboard playing buddy. His keyboard buddy Joe Chambers recommended this guy Joe Skarzinski that would come to my house. He was a jazz guy,
Wow.
Berkeley grad, and I studied with him for a couple of years, like maybe 4 or 5 years. And he was one of those cut off jean shorts, sandal wearing, like beatnik kind of jazz guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Cool.
love that guy, man. And I know Joe was telling me, Joe Striff was telling, he went to some jazz jam and he knew Joe Skarzinski because if you remember, if you know Joe's Striff story, he actually opened the first music shop he had at Freehold because Freehold just sold pianos. And Joe rented out a part and started selling guitars and stuff. So
Ah.
so he knew Joe Skarzinski from them days. But it's like this dude, he was cool. He was make you read out of the Berkeley book. Then he'd give you like some impossible rhythm to read, and you had to have it. It's like 2 or 4 measure thing, and when you're young, it's like this thing looks
I
impossible.
know. It's like, what is that chicken scratch on the page over
Yeah.
there? You know?
but he would give you stuff like that, and I remember like asking him, go back to BTO. I'm like, Joe, man, show me this solo. He's like, you know what? Figure out the chords, figure out what scale those chords are in, and then figure out the solo. He would never show me a freaking solo.
I know, right? That's like my later teachers when they would say like, "Oh yeah, go home and transcribe this Charlie Parker solo," and I'd look at them like, "Are you kidding me? Like really? Like I can't do that."
Oh yeah, hey, you might be able to figure it out, but writing it on paper
Yeah.
is not that easy, man.
Uh, yeah, that's for sure. That's all kinds of stuff there. Um, yeah, let's go back. Speaking of Joe Striff, we'll tell the people that Joe is a wonderful friend of ours that owns Musicians Workshop. And I know you taught there for many years. How many years were you at the workshop?
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I don't
At
even want
least
to say, right? A long time.
put it this way: I used to get there. My mother would drop me off there on her dinosaur, and then I would. All right, dude, I've been there like I'm the only one
Yeah,
that taught
no,
at every place. I've been there probably over 30 years.
yeah. Well, I remember that's when I met you, actually. I think I met you at the Musicians Workshop. A wonderful bass player, a friend of mine by the name of Dave LaRue. Some of you probably have heard of him. He's a wonderful bassist that played with Steve Morse. Anyway, when he left teaching at this Musicians Workshop, I came in and started teaching a little bit. And I believe that's where we met. And then you were in a band called Hung Jury at the time. You
The
want to talk
well
about
hung
that?
jury. Come on, man, get that
Yeah,
right.
the Well Hung Jury. You
But
want to
no,
talk about
yeah,
those crazy times in Sayreville with that band? I mean, that was a progressive band, you would say, right?
yeah. Well, we did. I mean, that was cool because the keyboard player Scotty he was really a bass player most of the time, but he could play keys, and then Frankie, the other guitar player, would play bass. So we could do a set like of Kansas, Journey, REO Speedwagon, that kind of stuff, and then once we're back to 2 guitars and bass, we did like Queensryche, Judas Priest, Rush, a lot of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it was just fun. It was it was one of those bands where we all got along because we all liked the same stuff.
Yeah, it's good to have some, guys that are all wanting to go in the same direction. I mean, it's gotta be that way. If a couple of guys want to go this way and that way, then that's when it
Yeah, well, you
doesn't
just
really last. But like you guys, like when I met you, I said, man, I got to go hear this guy's band. So, uh, yeah, very professional sounding, all great musicians, and things.
Yeah, it was, you know.
So so after you were after him, who was your next teacher? Was it what else did you do? Did you
Well,
study?
actually, you probably know the guy. I did the lessons with Joe Skarzinski, and you know, I always like Rick Emmett from Triumph. I always did like a finger picking piece, and like Steve Howe. So I studied for maybe a little less than a year with Lou Malia.
Yeah, he's a great classical guy, right? Classical teacher. I remember wanting to study with him when I was younger.
Yeah,
Could
he
you
was.
talk about him a little bit?
I really only studied. It was probably, you know, a little over 6 months, maybe. You know, definitely not a
Hmm.
year, but he was just kind of a strict guy. You know, he'd show you stuff. You know, he would always write like, you know, like little tips on the side because it's finger picking, like, you know, flat, make sure this is 90 degrees, and you know,
Yeah, how
do
to
this like
pick.
he'd take like even a measure or like a line of a tune and put like repeat signs in the beat, and then he'd write, do this 10 times. Like, just, it was, you know, more like a right hand exercise than a, you know, a fret hand exercise.
Yeah,
So
so you had some of that classical thing. I remember listening to Yes and Genesis and all of that when they came out, and like they were like my favorites. And you know, I'd listen to some of the stuff that Steve Howe did, and I was like, wow, you know. And even even Jimmy Page, right, from Led Zeppelin, man, he had some chord things going on there during that when they were doing the folkier type stuff, you know,
well, you know, it was
acoustic
weird.
stuff, I should say.
Well, that yeah, that more Celtic folky stuff,
Right.
but that was where I kind of parted with that because I suck at weird tunings and slide, like two things like I always wish I was good at, but I never wanted to detune my guitars and I never wanted to play slide. So it's like, hey, some guys are great at it. It never worked for me, man.
Well, you know what they say, you are what you eat, and you know, and everybody's different. That's what's so great about music.
Yeah, well,
So while we're on the education thing, man, you went out to LA for a while, right?
yeah, I was there 84 to 86. I did a 12-week stint. It was at Musicians Institute, the GIT, Guitar Institute of Technology, and studied with some great guys there. I mean, we saw, like, at the time they were kind of up and comers. Was Frank Gambale was there, Scott
Mhm.
Henderson,
Oh wow.
um, Jimmy Herring was a student. He wasn't teaching or anything. And Paul Gilbert was a student there that same time that I was down there. And
Wow, Paul Gilbert. Oh man,
it was
and Jimmy
like,
Herring. Jimmy Herring has becoming one of my new favorite guys right now.
yeah, he's
He's playing
amazing.
with a band right now called Widespread Panic that I enjoy a lot.
Yeah, he's done a lot, that guy, man.
Oh
He's awesome.
yeah,
Well, the guy that I, I I remember when they did the 12-week the summer course graduation, the teacher Steve Travata is just badass. He's like if you combined like Brian Setzer, Albert Lee, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and they were good. That's how
yeah.
bad.
He's like the best guitar player that hardly anybody has ever heard of,
You ever
and
you
this
ever hear
guy
any of that?
that's unbelievable, right?
Oh,
No, I never even heard of him, and I'm sure if if you say it's unbelievable, he's got.
dude, they did him and they had a full band. There was a couple of the teachers, a couple students, but it was Steve Travata and Jimmy Herring was playing, and they did Somewhere Over the Rainbow, but every verse was like, one was like a salsa, one was jazz, one was country. Like, they just kept reggae, they just kept changing the groove, but it was still the same changes. It was like, I was like, this is so freaking
Wow.
cool. You know?
Yeah.
It was, I mean, they probably did like 15 verses. You know?
Yeah, it's funny how when you change when you change up the rhythm, you can make it sound like a totally different song. It's rhythm. I think has a lot to do with style. I really do. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I
Like
mean,
the rhythm of things. Like I know on the bass, like if I'm playing, it's gonna sound like rock, man. Or if I'm playing something funky, that's a whole different thing. And I mean, there's only 12 notes, so it's all the same notes. Just how you
yeah, but you know
rhythmic.
what? Like, if you had, like, I know when I was a kid, my father had, like, those one of those organs that had it was like a piece of furniture you'd have in your house instead of a piano. And he had the drum, like, there's like the drum box on it. So you
Oh
got
yeah,
like a
I remember
salsa
those.
beat.
Oh yeah,
But if you pop those on, I used to do that as a kid, and I still encourage people to do it if they can find those cheesy keyboards. Like, if you hit a swing beat, it's going to make you play different than when you hit like a rock and roll beat. So, I thought, regardless of the the chords, those drum beats and stuff dictate the way you could actually play.
yeah. Because well, unless you have no musical talent and you're playing totally against the groove, I guess. Well, like I heard Dave Matthews say one time that he writes a song and then the first person he gets together with is the drummer to set up the groove of things, and that's the way he does it a lot of times. I mean, there's no set way to compose or write, but I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, but like, that's why even I've given you stuff. Like, if I try to avoid giving like a band, or if you're going to record with people, like a dummy tracks with a drum beat, because then that's going to be stuck in their head. You're better off just giving someone a click, let them come up with they come up with. Or if it's more of a rock song, maybe get the whole band together and just freaking play the rhythm, play the basic tracks live.
Oh yeah. But that's what I mean. I mean, I was just talking more about the writing process, like before even going into the studio or recording or anything like that. Um, but yeah, let's see. What else do I have here on my things that? All right. Well, like I said in the intro, if people want to get in touch with Mr. Nash here, it's ronnashguitar.com, and on there you can find his resume, his books. You can download his books. You can contact him for teaching and all of that kind of good stuff. All right. So now that we got that,
And I will be selling a lot of gear on there too, because due to stupid lockdown here, I've been finding boxes to put stuff in that I want to get rid of. So,
oh, I see. I see. Yes,
discounts, I mean, you'd be crazy not to buy it.
our prices are insane.
And believe it, that's how long I've been teaching.
The
Because
crazy Eddie guy.
when Joe had the musicians workshop in Ocean Township, the anchor store for the mall that we were in, like an outside mall thing, was Crazy Eddie. And
Oh,
once they went out of business, no more foot traffic. It was like a ghost town by that store at that point. But yeah, his prices were insane. They were so insane he went out of business.
I know. Yeah, right. He just gave stuff away. Oh my gosh.
It's
All
messed
right.
up.
So you can contact Ron there at ronnashguitar.com. Um, all right. If you could tell people this question I have here, if you could tell people that want to play guitar one thing, what could it be? Like if you're going to tell them like something to say like, one thing, like, what is it? Is inspiration, desire, work ethics?
Well, you know what? If you're a kid, I say try everything. Some things you're naturally going to be good at, and if you're interested in it, it's easier to learn something. You
Yeah,
know,
obviously, if they're coming to you for a lesson, they're coming.
but I mean, some people just want to try it and they find out they're not really good at it or they don't really like it and they stop. But you know, I mean, most of the time, like I said before, with the adults, I mean, a lot of times they just want to come in, have a little fun. They're not expecting to be the next Van Halen or nothing. They just want to have some fun with it. But you get some serious kids, and they just keep,
Like,
chomping at the bit.
like sponges, right? Some of them,
Oh, like I've been,
and then there's the other ones that come every week and they never did anything. But we won't talk about those bad boys.
hey
Only the
man,
good boys, right?
thank God for those checks coming
Yeah,
in.
really. Keep them coming. All right, we're filming this during the pandemic, and we're up here in New Jersey, and it's kind of crazy up here right now. So actually, I saw, Ron will have also on his website some musical equipment that hopefully you can't resist, and pick some of that up. Actually, I bought that amp I bought off of you. I bought a SWR combo amp from Ron, and I've been using that. It's like right behind me, and I love it to death. Um, all right, let's see what else do we got here to cover. I know I got some more things that I wanted to.
Remember though, if you see this lovely poster comes
Oh,
free when you
that's
buy
right.
my pro package of both books, the workbook, my CD, and I'll give you a free poster.
Oh, look at that. And that's a nice poster too. There's a lot of artwork in that.
That was actually written. It was drawn by a guy, Johnny Tiskevich, who lives right up the street. His dad used to be my gym coach for 100 years in junior high and high school, and he works for Superman Comics. Very talented young man.
Wow, Superman
I
comics.
actually up there I
That's
have
pretty
the
cool.
original artwork because the concept is mine, but you know I have trouble like drawing stick figures, so I figured I'd leave it to him to
Leave
draw.
it to him.
Like I
That's
said before, some people are good at some things, some are good at others, and I
yeah.
can't draw.
Nah, well, I try, but I do okay sometimes. People tell me. Um, all right. So now that we got into this pandemic thing here, with the I know nobody's really playing live. What are you kind of doing musically now? Are you working on some originals, or are you recording, or like
Well,
what are you
actually,
doing now during this time of this pandemic?
I've been tweaking my studio because I'm just trying to get a few things to work together that haven't haven't quite figured out yet. But yeah, I'm tracking some basic ideas for I got about 5 songs in the works now, so you know just writing, playing. I was practicing because I was doing that Dave Matthews tribute band thing, but
Oh yeah, let's talk about that a little bit since I mentioned Dave before. You kind of play a different role with that kind of band with that band. What maybe maybe you could tell people like what are you covering in the Dave Matthews Band?
well, basically, what we're the guy Rob Messina that he got all the Dave parts nailed. So the drummer he's had for quite a few years. The bass player, it's like I think this is his second bass player, and then he's having trouble with guitar players and just unreliable or couldn't travel. So I used to teach his son, and I actually taught his guitar teacher. I taught Stan Chan a bunch of stuff at one, and Stan was teaching him. He's a great player too. Um, Secret Asian man, Stan Chan.
There you go, Stan, the
But
secret agent, man.
but Rob's got that part down. Basically I'm doubling those parts. I'm really trying to stick to like the other dude in that band. What's his Tim Reynolds or something?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, I
terrible with names. Like my son is a stats guy, and he's always like, "Dad, you don't know anybody's name."
yeah,
I
I
was like,
think that's the dude, Tim. But I just put together. I have those Godin guitars, and I have Brian Moore guitars that have synth pickups and piezo pickups. And I've been doing during this pandemic is trying to get all three outputs of those guitars to work for this Dave Matthews situation. So I could use violin sounds and like some horn sounds from the synth. I could use some acoustic sounds, or I can use some electric sounds. So I'm actually working the bugs out of that. So hopefully next time we're able to play in front of human beings drinking alcohol,
yeah,
we might get a chance to hear all that stuff.
yeah. Well, that'd be great, and you got to keep me posted on on where you're playing. Um, what about guitars? Do you have a favorite guitar? I know you have a bunch of guitars. Is there any one that's like a super favorite?
Well, I got about 35 guitars, but
I know it's so hard to pick.
this one has the most miles, man. This one has been played every day since about 1981. So,
Yep, it's always the acoustic guitars. Like I bought one of those acoustic electric basses, and it's always handy and it's always right there. And I have so many miles on that thing because it's right there. I always keep my instrument where I can see it, and it always calls me over like every day.
yeah, well, it's a workhorse. It doesn't go out of tune, you know. I mean, and if so, it don't go out of tune. And then with this kind of bowl like this, like if you're at a party, you can always got a punch bowl too.
Yeah,
So
punch bowl. You can make a nice.
like a quart of vodka and some watermelon juice, and it's amazing.
Yep, and it won't even seep through because the back is plastic, right?
You can fit about 15 straws in there.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I got a lot of guitars that I like for different things. But as far as like that's here, so I'm gonna write songs on it. I'm gonna learn songs that I need to learn. I'm gonna do
Yep.
it on there. 90% of the time.
All right. Yeah, I got it. I got one for you here. If you were stranded on a desert island, what three albums would you take with you? Are there are there any three that
Three albums. Let's see. That's kind of a tough one,
I
but
know it's so hard because there's so much great music.
well, God, there's so many I would love, but well, I would go. I mean, Rush 2112, definitely.
Gotta have the rush.
You know, then probably. I mean, there's to narrow three is tough, but then I would have to go. Let's see, 2112, maybe Operation Mind Crime from Queensryche, and let's see. I probably have to go with On Your Feet or On Your Knees, Oyster Cult's first live album.
All right. There you
But,
go. Back to the beginnings with the Blue Oyster Cult stuff. Yeah.
well, I mean, if I had a split town, remember I have no tracking devices, so you will not be able to follow my phone signal. And I have bags of cash and weapons, so when I disappear, I'm bringing more than three albums.
All right. There you go. There's no 3 album limit for me over here. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure I could stuff at least 10 in that half empty ammo case.
What have you been listening to lately? Like, what's like the latest stuff you've been listening to? Like, have you been listening to much stuff, or just basically you just writing and composing?
No, I've really been listening to anything new, to be honest with you. But I, I've been out in the garage. I've listened to the Kansas catalog there because last time I seen them like a few months ago, they were just unbelievable. And then I listened to the King's X catalog because I just love them guys.
Oh,
You know,
King's X. Yeah, we have the Jerry living. The drummer from King's X lives in New Jersey now. Um, Man, there's just so many great musicians from New Jersey. What about New Jersey musicians? Are there any that you really like? Like I know, like Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi. That might not be your cup of tea, but is there anybody
I don't
from?
honestly, I don't even know what rock bands are from Jersey. I mean, well, of course,
Yeah,
Bon Jovi, because I went to school with Bon Jovi and played in bands with him as a kid. But man, his songs are okay. It's not my total cup of tea, but yeah, John, he's an all right dude.
And
And
what was it like growing up at that time? Like the bands that were around. I remember I was playing at a art stocks club called the Playpen at that time, and a lot of these musicians would come in, and there was always a whisper about, oh, John Bon Jovi, and before I knew who they were, how did I know? I mean, I was playing in a R&B show band at the time, so I didn't know anything about that kind of music.
well, I mean, I played with him. The thing I don't remember who the first guy. They had like some talent show or something to play, and I'm talking, I don't know, maybe eighth or ninth grade or something like that.
Yeah, way back
And
because you
and
grew up with him, right?
yeah, yeah. But the thing was, they had a band, and I forget. I mean, I wish I could remember who was the guitar guy. I remember everybody else, but I guess the guy got stage fright or just couldn't cut it. And I was like the kid who could play a Kiss solo and a BTO solo. So
Right.
it's like they got me. I mean, it probably wasn't even a week, and then we did that talent show, and actually I could still remember, I think, the songs. We did Taking Care of Business, Johnny Be Good, and oh shit, one other song. We only did three for a talent show, but it'll come back to me. But
There you go. But that was a great time, huh? But back then, I mean, you were like, well, whatever. These are just like my school guys here.
well, the thing is I played with them, and I was at that point. I told you earlier, I was into Oyster and Deep Purple, Uriah
Right.
Heep, and we did some of the songs that played with him, just typical kiddie songs. Actually, the other one was Rock and Roll All Night. So,
There you go. By
so
Kiss, the Kiss song.
right. So, um, I mean, we were playing that kind of stuff, just garage band in my basement. Actually, we used to practice in my basement once I was in the band for a while, but then he just wanted to do like something with all the kids in like the high school band, like the horns and stuff, which I wasn't in the high school music program. They're all
Right.
band geek kind of,
Right.
wimpy kids, and I wanted to party. But so he got a bunch of them, and they did a Springsteen thing, and I was like, well, I don't really like that shit. I mean, I want to play Oyster and Black Sabbath. I don't want to play freaking Bruce and Southside Johnny songs.
Right. Right.
So then he did that at Atlantic City Expressway, and then he just, that took. Well, he actually turned me on to Prophet, though, that local band that used to, because he's like, he was playing, I was playing too, playing in different bands here and there, and he goes, dude, I know you don't like my stuff, but he's like, you probably like these guys because they were doing, all the prog rock and some of the heavier rock that I like. So,
Yeah, that
that's
was a
how
good
actually I got
local.
to know those guys because he mentioned them. Really.
That was a good local band. That Prophet.
Oh,
Yeah.
those guys were the fucking best, man. I love those
Yeah. I
guys.
mean, there was a lot of great bands back then that I knew, like I don't know, Sam the Band and Prophet, and Twisted Sister. I remember the first time I saw Twisted Sister at Art Stock's Royal Manor there on Route 1. I was like,
Well,
what the heck? What are these guys like? And I said to the guy next to me, standing there, I said, these guys are dressed like girls. Like, what's up with these guys? And the guy turns to me and he goes, you better not tell them that because they'll kick your ass. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, man. He goes, they may look like girls, but they're rough boys. I was like, oh, okay. I get it. I get it. Rock and roll, man. Peace.
they were.
I was playing Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I go into this place and there's these guys with the makeup and all of that stuff. What do you remember that time?
Oh, dude. Well, that was different because there was clubs. Like you weren't like playing in like now, like the last 20 years, you're mostly just playing in a bar, like a restaurant. It's like, hey, yeah, you guys could start as soon as we move this salad bar out of the way, and you could set up over there. You got a fucking coffee machine next to your amp and all this
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah,
But back then they had real stages with real bands. So you had even I remember like just going to clubs. Not that you like the music, but if you remember, like all that new wave kind of uh, skinny tie Joe Jackson shit was
yeah,
big,
yeah. Yep,
and
yep.
there was club bands to watch and the Nines and even Baby Blue. I think Stan was Stan Steele, but or one of those something Backstreet. I mean,
Backstreet,
but the
yeah,
point is, like now, like it didn't matter if you really liked the music because at least the bands were going to be good at that music they played, like Yazgers, I mean,
right.
White Tiger, TT Quick. I mean, there's so many fucking good bands, and
Like I remember going to see a few bands when we were putting Source together, my the band that I was in for a while. We went to go see Waterfront and uh, who was that? Lenny Molinari's band there back in the day with Chucky singing. Uh, I can't remember their name now, but
before Yazgers.
yeah, I can't remember the name of the band now. And they were really big, but we went to go see a bunch of club bands, and man, there was some horn bands and rock bands, and then the drinking age turned to 18. I remember, and like you said, everybody was playing in big clubs, big stages. Now they've dwindled pretty much down, I guess, because not that many people are going out.
Well, the drinking law too at one point changed it, and then all these DWI checkpoints. I mean, not saying you should go out and get snot hanging drunk and drive home, but
Right.
I mean they fucked up a lot of the clubs. I mean, they would just wait until people were leaving, and even if they weren't like driving stupidly, they had roadblocks, and if they smelled booze, you're fucking screwed.
Yeah,
So
that's for sure. Now, I
that
mean, I don't drink when I go out at all because it was getting so strict. Just it does put a kibosh on stuff.
no, you got to know, man. It's like all right. That's why when you're playing, man, I'll have a couple in the second set, one before the third set, and by the time I'm packed up, I ain't having no more.
Yeah, yeah, you got to be safe.
Once in a while, unless Tommy Kelly buys me some drinks.
Yeah, yeah. Tommy, that Tommy Kelly, the singer from Southern Steel. He's always like, "Can I buy you a drink? Let me buy you a drink. Have a drink. Come on, have a drink." I'm like, Tommy, I don't drink. Oh, yes, you do. Have a shot. Come on, I'm buying you one. And of course, I do a shot with him and stuff like that.
Ah, I love
Great guy.
Tommy. He's so cool, man.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of great guys, and hopefully I can get some guys to come in and join up like you. All right. So, what do you think? What are you doing in the what are your plans, in the future? I know that you're still playing with Kevin and company, And we spoke about the Dave Matthews thing, which I want to definitely
Yeah, that's called Rhyme and
definitely
Reason.
Rhyme and Reason.
Yeah, well,
That's
sometimes I do duos with him, just two acoustics, but the way things are now, man, who knows?
yeah. So what about getting together? You know, getting together and just on online. I know everybody's scrambling, trying to, they're putting up tip jars and everything that they could do. I mean, I really feel sorry for some of the full-time musicians in New Jersey, which there's a lot of full-time musicians. I mean, guys that didn't teach, guys that just relied on that road and
Ah,
getting on the stage and the gigs, like, and traveling. I mean, I just feel terrible for, for somebody that's got all their eggs in one basket.
well, that's why I've been checking out YouTube, like how to be a good bank robber and not get caught.
And not
And,
get caught, yeah.
but
Well, that's about what you have to be if if you're thinking about YouTube as a career. Um, let me tell you, don't. It's just like music. Don't do it as a career. Do it because you love it, and if you love it, then you'll keep doing it. You know what I mean? But I wish everybody luck and all of that. Ron, I'd like to thank you so much for helping me out with everything, checking out my gear and everything on this first podcast from John Thompson Music. Anything else before we close, man? Is there anything else? I mean, go to ronnashguitar.com and definitely download those books or order a copy of the books. And I know they're absolutely wonderful material, and you even maybe get a free poster. So
yeah, look at that, man. And sign up for Zoom and Skype lessons.
that's right. Oh yes, don't forget about the online
If you
lessons. I
mention
mean,
John Thompson's music situation here, what's the name of your podcast again?
it's just John Thompson Music. This is podcast number 1, baby, and I'm just going to keep going as long as I have the ambition and people are tuning in.
Well, if you mention John Thompson, I will give you 50 cents off a lesson.
There you go. That's a total bargain.
And a free poster. And
yes.
well, he did ask me what's in my near future is an empanada in the kitchen.
Thank you for tuning in to John Thompson Music, the All About Music channel. Video podcasting, bass lessons, product reviews, and I'll be playing some bass for you. So if you like my stuff, go to my YouTube channel, John Thompson Music, click on playlists, and go to JT Live. That's where you'll find all my free stuff for private lessons and video instruction. I can be reached at johnthompsonbass.com. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Peace, love, and music for all. Until next time.